Hey, Ani, what are you doing?
I'm practicing.
You're practicing? What are you practicing for?
Well, in today's Bible story, they blew trumpets, so I'm trying to learn how to play one.
Awesome. That's so great. Hey, friends. Welcome to today's Grace Kids Ministry Moment. I'm Charlene, and this is Ani, and we're coming to you from Grace Lutheran Church in Nashua. Well, we are going to hear a story today about a trumpet. Actually, the trumpet in today's Bible story is something called a shofar and would look a little bit more like this. The shofar was made from a ram's horn. So stick around and you'll get to hear all about it. Let's start with the song.
Beyond what I can see. My God is so great. My God can do anything. My God is so great. Here we go now. My God is so great, so strong and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do.
Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, from Joshua chapter 6. When the people of Israel entered the land of Canaan, Joshua was their leader, a man chosen by God. In cities like Jericho, there were people who did evil things, who had to be driven from the land. That was Joshua's task, and it was a tremendous challenge. But Joshua had God's promise, "I will be with you. Be strong and very courageous." So Joshua, at God's command, led his people to Jericho. The city of Jericho shut its gates tightly when they heard the Israelites were approaching. They were afraid, so they gathered together their weapons and got ready for war. Joshua looked at the walls, so tall and so thick and so strong, he knew no human power could break them down. But Joshua remembered God had said, "No one will be able to stand before you all the days of your life." And as Joshua looked to the Lord for help, a strange thing happened. There stood a man with a sword drawn in his hand. And when Joshua asked who he was, the man said, "I am the captain of the army of the Lord." Joshua obeyed with humble worship, and he listened carefully to all the instructions the Lord gave him. When Joshua returned to camp, he called together his men. They listened to Joshua's orders, and they realized that obeying them would test their faith in the Lord. Surely no soldiers ever heard such orders as Joshua's men heard from their leader. But the men were encouraged when Joshua told them that the Lord said the walls of Jericho would fall down flat, and every man would go straight into the city. So the men of Israel prepared to obey. From the top of the wall, Jericho's men of war watched as the Israelites approached. First came armed men, then something that looked very strange. 7 priests were blowing their trumpets continually, and following them, a mysterious object was hidden beneath a covering. What could it be? Only the people of Israel knew it was the ark of the Lord, and it was there to remind them that the Lord went before them, and the victory was in the Lord. The Israelites marched around the city in a quiet and peaceful way. Not a single word was spoken. The only sounds to be heard were the steady stamping of marching feet and the endless blasts of the priests' trumpets. The people of Jericho just stood still and watched in amazement. On the second day, the Israelites did exactly the same thing as they had done the day before. The priests carried the ark of the Lord around the city, 7 priests always blowing their trumpets before it, and armed men marching in front and the rear. Every day for 6 days the same thing happened, and every day the people of Jericho watched and waited. On the morning of the 7th day, the Israelites marched around the city as before, but then, instead of returning to their camp, they marched around a second time, and then again, and again, and again. 7 times the Israelites marched around the city. At the end of the 7th time, every man stopped and faced the walls, completely surrounding the city of Jericho. And suddenly the trumpets stopped. Every man waited for the Lord's appointed signal. A long blast of the trumpets. Then Joshua cried, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And the people of Israel raised a great shout of victory. And the walls of the city fell down flat. Joshua commanded that the city and everything that was in it be devoted to the Lord. After that time, wherever they went in the promised land, the Israelites had victory as long as they had faith in the Lord and obeyed his commands. Last week, we heard about how the Israelites had entered the promised land, but not all of it was theirs yet. In today's story, the Israelites have a battle for the city of Jericho. The people of Jericho had heard all about the Israelites, so they tightly shut up their city. They had very tall walls around it, and they probably believed that their walls would protect them. Normally, if an army was going to attack a city with tall walls, they might have tried to use ladders or ramps to go up over the wall. Or maybe they would dig a tunnel and try to go underneath the wall. Or maybe they would try to find something very strong and go through the wall. But that is not the approach that God instructed Joshua to take. God sent an angel to Joshua with some very specific instructions, and his job was to make sure they were followed. The plan was unlike anything that an army would normally use. Anyone without faith in the Lord might have thought the plan was ridiculous. Priests were to carry the Ark of the Covenant, and 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets or ram's horns were to go before the ark, blowing the trumpets continually. They were to circle the city once each day for 6 days. On the 7th day, the men were to march around the city 7 times, and after the 7th time, the priests were to make one long blast on the trumpets, or shofars, as I mentioned at the beginning. At the trumpet sound, the people were to shout loudly. The people did as they were instructed, and as soon as they heard the trumpets, they shouted, and the walls fell down. The people charged into Jericho and captured it, And Joshua instructed them to devote everything they found in the city to the Lord. They were not to keep anything for themselves. And that is how God helped his people take the city of Jericho. Sometimes we do not understand why the Lord requires certain things of us. I imagine that Joshua may have been puzzled by the commands in this story. However, the Lord made it clear to Joshua that success would come from listening to and following what the Lord commanded. Joshua had to trust that God had a plan, and then he had to obey what God asked him to do. I'm sure that Joshua remembered all the ways that God had already shown his strength and his power in order to provide for him and for the Israelites. And this likely helped him to trust God in this situation as well. We can remember this important lesson for our own lives. God has a plan, and sometimes it seems different than what we would choose to do. But God is strong and powerful, and he can do anything. Our job is to remember that God is in charge, and we have victory in him. When we do, we'll be able, like Joshua, to see God do amazing things and take down the great big walls in our lives.
Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. You can talk about the men of Gideon, you can talk about the men of Saul, but there's none like good old Joshua and the battle of Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Right up to the walls of Jericho, they marched with spear in hand. Go, go, then ram horns, Joshua cried, 'cause the battle is in my hand. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Then the ram sheep horns began to blow, and the trumpets began to sound. Joshua told them to give a shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down.
Hey Theo, what are you making?
Well, my friend said he had a great time building with marshmallows and toothpicks, and I thought it would be fun to build too. But as you can see, I have made a really big mess.
Oh, Theo. Well, what was your friend's instructions?
Well, that's the funny part. I was so excited to get started on the building, and I kind of didn't pay attention to any of the instructions.
Oh, do you think that's why you're having such a hard time?
I guess it is, but my friend is gone now, so I don't know what to do.
Well, Theo, you're in luck. We were just going to tell the kids about a fun building activity we brought with us today. Why don't you listen in, and then maybe you'll be able to finish your project.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, Theo, I'll check back with you later.
Today we are going to do some building with marshmallows and toothpicks. If you follow the directions carefully, we'll show you how to construct several three-dimensional shapes. First, here are the supplies that you will need. Some toothpicks and a bag of mini marshmallows. The first shape we are going to make is called a tetrahedron, also called a triangular pyramid. For this, you will need 4 marshmallows and 6 toothpicks. First, you're going to take a marshmallow and poke 2 of the toothpicks in either side, and you are going to make a triangle. Next, you can put it down and you're going to poke 3 toothpicks going up through the marshmallow. And you're going to connect those all to your last marshmallow. And this is what your tetrahedron should look like. Next, we are going to try a pyramid. This one uses 8 toothpicks and 5 marshmallows. You are going to start by making a square with your toothpicks and your marshmallows. After that, you are going to use 2 of your toothpicks and stick them upward on the side. And you're going to do that on both sides. And you're going to connect all 4 of those with your last marshmallow in the middle. And it should look like that. So that's your pyramid. The next one we're going to do is a triangular prism. This one uses 6 marshmallows and 9 toothpicks. You're going to start by making 2 triangles with your marshmallows and your toothpicks. Then you will use your last 2 toothpicks on the bottom. And then you are going to connect the 2 triangles using those toothpicks. And that's what your triangular prism should look like. The last one that we're going to make is a cube. This one has 8 marshmallows and 12 toothpicks. You're going to start this one by making a square. After that, you're going to make one more square. Next, you're going to take one of your squares and you're going to stick your last 4 toothpicks in them facing upward. Then you can connect your square to the top of that. And then you have your cube. I hope you had fun following the directions to make your 3-dimensional shapes with marshmallows and toothpicks. I also hope it reminds you of today's Bible story. Joshua had some important directions to follow, and because he was able to listen and follow God, he was successful.
Hey Theo, how did it go?
Well, I listened carefully to the instructions and look.
Wow, Theo, those came out great.
Thanks.
I guess you learned 2 important lessons today. First, you learned how to make the marshmallow and toothpick structures, and you learned how important it was to listen to and follow instructions.
I sure did.
Yeah, Theo, our Bible story today reminded me of that lesson too. Joshua and the Israelites were given very specific instructions about how they were supposed to take the city of Jericho. The instructions probably even sounded a little bit strange and like they might not work. But guess what?
What?
Joshua listened and the people did just as he said, and they won the battle. They too learned how important it is to listen to and follow directions.
Wowzers! I guess that is a good lesson for all of us.
Thanks for helping me. Bye, kids.
Hi friends, your first craft is going to be the tumbling block trivet. So what you're going to need is a piece of paper or cardstock or poster board, and you're going to cut it into an 8-inch by 8-inch square. The next thing you're going to need are sorted colored paper, and you want to cut these into 2-inch strips. So you might need some adult help with some measuring for the 8x8 board and the 2-inch strips. You're also going to need a pattern for our blocks. So you're going to draw a 2-inch by 2-inch square on a piece of paper, and then you can draw a line through it. So it's 2 triangles and it forms a square. You're going to need this pattern. You're going to need a pair of scissors and also a glue stick. So the first thing you want to do is cut out that pattern that you made. The 2-inch by 2-inch square, you want to cut that out into 2 triangles. So once you have your 2 triangles, you're going to take them and you're going to trace them on the little paper strips that you cut out. So you're going to put your triangle on here, you can trace it, which means you probably need a pencil as well, and you want to trace these and then cut them. Once you have all your triangles cut out, you can arrange them on the 8x8 square you had into a fun pattern, and then once you find a pattern that you like, you can glue them all down. So as you build your trivet, you can remember how the walls of Jericho were built really high around the city.
Today we're going to be making a Fall of Jericho kazoo. What you're going to need to make this is you're going to need a toilet paper tube, a safety pin, rubber bands. You might want some stickers or markers or crayons to decorate your kazoo, and a square of wax paper. And you're going to want this to be big enough to cover the top of your toilet paper tube. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your toilet paper tube and, with an adult's help, use your safety pin to poke 5 holes in your toilet paper tube. Alright, so once you're done doing that, you're going to have your kazoo with your 5 holes poked in it. And then you're going to then you might want to decorate it with markers or crayons. And you can also use stickers, but just make sure they're not blocking your holes. So make sure that you always know where your holes are at all times, so that way you're not putting stickers on top of them. Okay, so once you're done with that, you're going to take your wax paper and put it on top, and then you can fold the edges down. But yeah, so you fold the edges down like this, it starts tight, then you take your rubber bands and tie it around. You might have to do it twice. Once you're done with that, you can blow and stuff and hum and sing through your holes, and as you do that, you can remember the Israelites blowing their trumpets around the city of Jericho.
Thank you for joining us today for our Grace Kids Ministry Moment. Our big idea for today is listen to God's commands and follow them, just like Joshua did. Will you join me in a prayer as we close today? Let's fold our hands. Dear Lord, thank you that you have a plan for our lives. Help us to listen to what you say and follow what you ask us to do. We thank you for always leading and guiding us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I hope you'll take some time this week to download the lesson below the video and try it out with somebody at home, or do some of the activities we described. All of them are available in the download below the video. I hope you have a wonderful week listening for God and following His commands. God bless you.
We trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. We're off on this journey, there's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open eyes. We're looking ahead for the next big surprise. Oh, 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 oh. We trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. We're off on this journey, there's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open